ที่ชอบเราจะประธานบริษัทประธานHmong American Leadership Council ที่จะเป็น young leaders และต้องต่อตัวโปรแกรม在岛内除了做多其他嘛，那个去对嘛，去到นู่นนี่去包的那样的，我们没和 Michael 一样，谁呀？我好人家好人从 Minneapolis 和 Neighborhood Community Relations Department， 我也不是这边讲红嘛，亚拉他们在搞人家的好和 Department， 我好人家好 City Minneapolis 到里想就想，มันนู่นเราไปชิธานะจะไปชิธาเจอเนี่ยเขารุ่นจาก Minneapolis จะเนี่ยที่จะเจียว่ารุ่นจากมั่วลองแต่ไปสั่งนะอย่างว่าจะเนี่ยเราไฟจานเนี่ยเขาเจ้าเมืองเลยยังไม่ไฟเพราะbudget priority อย่างนี้เราจะอีสานน้องนี่จะชี้ที่นี่สาบปอแต่รุ่นจากเราอยู่จุดว่าจะเนี่ยเราไฟหมู่ชิที่คอร์ใจก็เชื่อจะรีเตาว่าจะ help ละเก็บป้าจั่วลองแต่รุ่นจากป้าเราไม่ไปสั่งเสด็จที่เจ้านี่ผู้เจ้านี่จีเสด็จที่เจ้าจ่อเสด็จตัวเนี่ยthe future leader ที่จะยัง leader เราไปจุ่มผู้เสด็จในตัวนะตัวตั้งวิจารณ์ชี้ทอกกันในเคลียร์เราไปเสด็จเหตุการณ์กูใจตอนนี้น้อยมั่วใช้ลูนิวยอร์กใช้ลูเที่ยวันมุ่งกับไปเสด็จเป้าเที่ยเดี๋ยวมุ่ง YouTube เราตัวเที่ยเรายังมั่งไทยจอกับไปจะหนีจีก็จะนั่งจ่ายที่ปอดที่นะนี่ให้ลูกตอนกี่เราให้อย่าร้องให้อย่าเดี๋ยวนี่ให้ลูกตอนลูกมั่งเราทอกกันนี่ให้ลูกมั่งวีเดี๋ยวจะเนี่ยตัดใจจะหนีน้อที่ปอดนะทีนี้เราจะเดี๋ยวนี้ให้ลูกตอนลูกมั่งเรามั่วตัวใช้ลูจะหนีมาให้ Welcome to our conversation today on the City of Minneapolis budget priorities. We are here to hear from you. My name is Michael Yang. I'm the Southeast Asian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis Neighborhood and Community Relations Department. And my colleagues are also from the city. At 12 o'clock, the mayor will join us and we'll eat with him together. And so I want to quickly welcome all of you, especially presidents of Hmong 18 Council, the presidents of Hmong American Leadership Council. May 1st, it was the governor issued a proclamation May 1st as Hmong American Leadership Council's Day at the state capitol, and all the young leaders and for being here. We want to hear from you, and my colleagues will take us on a conversation before the mayor comes in to join us. So with that being said, I think it's really good for us to do a self-introduction, just your name, that's cool, just your name or your organization, and then we'll end it at my colleagues from the city of Minneapolis, and she can take over. Start from the side.
Hi, I'm Andrea Inouye. I'm in the mayor's office.
My name is Taku. I'm with the Hmong American Leadership Program.
This is James from Skyline. Paul from Horticulture.
Thomas from Hmong American.
My name is Jerry. I'm just a couple of blocks away. I'm not in there.
We are resident.
I'm mainly, I'm one of the residents that I live close to here. I'm from her, I'm the same as Neng, I'm a resident here.
I am Tom Zhang. I'm the PR of Hmong American Leadership Council. We are currently located in St. Paul, Minnesota.
I'm Yang, Hmong American Leadership Council.
Working for a couple of organizations today. The community leader in Minneapolis.
I'm Yang Yi Lor, and I run the Hmong Civic Leadership Program.
I'm Ali Pocha. I present with Hmong Leadership Council.
My name is Ace, and I'm with the Hmong Civic Leadership Group.
I'm Chen Babu, and I'm with Hmong 18 Council and the leadership, civic leadership team.
Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Tao, and I'm also a program participant.
Hi, everyone. My name is Koo Hurd. I am a community member and also part of the Hmong Civic Leadership Program.
I'm Haley Bing. I'm also part of the Hmong Civic Leadership.
I'm Amelie Yang, and I'm a student of the Hmong Civic Engagement Program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Coles. I'm the budget manager for the city of Minneapolis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Erdman. I'm a budget analyst at the city of Minneapolis, and I work with Justin.
And with that being said, Lindsay.
Yeah, so we'll just get right into it. We're gonna start off by doing just some like really high level overview of how the city thinks about budgeting, and then we're gonna ask all of you to provide your input into how the mayor should prioritize different policy areas in the budget. And then we'll visit with the mayor, and if there's time afterwards, if people would like to stay, we do have a budget simulation tool where you all can get some experience with balancing a city budget. And then we also have an evaluation that we'd like you all to take as well to inform like future iterations like of these sessions.
那我有我也接触了，有时候我的家里啥，不是人家他到天，我领导那上主任的对 survey 的，那啥的家，那啥搞的注意，把你的根本给你的世界的，你到家被把你我到天了。
So we can really think of a city budget as a collection of its priorities, and the city sets its budget to determine how it wants to fund city services and goods within those priority areas. The city sets priorities yearly with input from residents, city staff, and others regarding what's important. And we can really think of these priority areas as categories for city services and goods. Priorities inform the strategic direction of city services and are used to inform decision making about the city. And within the context of budgeting, priorities inform how much money the city needs to raise in property taxes to fund the services and goods within each of the priority areas. The city raises revenues to fund priorities by determining a level of fees and taxes. Most folks are familiar with this by receiving an annual property tax and utility bill, which is reflective of this level required to pay for services and goods. And even if you're a renter, you too are paying for property taxes, which is most likely embedded in the cost of your rent. Property taxes take account into the current cost of providing services and also the future cost of providing city services as well. We can really think of the cost of providing city services as like an ecosystem to keep the city open and running to provide both those services now and in the future. So I have this really simple mind map behind us, which has an image of a snowplow here. And all the different costs that go into providing this city service, like staff, a storage facility to store the snowplow itself, but also snow. Utilities for the building that staff work in, where we store, said vehicle and snow.
Yeah, no, or just if I follow a look chain or check goes to them down here, they didn't know holy check there, holy jelly or the Tanya, Domitana.
We also have maintenance costs, gas costs.
They do the call, we call the check, it goes down there, and our answer maintenance and
gas.
They take a shut out of the truck there.
So the city thinks about providing snow removal services as an ongoing cost. So we budget for this every year in an ongoing manner. Even like in this year, for example, we didn't really use a lot of snow plowing services, but we still have to budget for it.
So what is that? So you lost snow. Don't want to. We are doing. Maybe can get in a cookie. The thing not there. We on our soldier truck on a ghost snow. Like if you show not that you lost snow, don't be in maybe can get down there. You see the gap wrong.
So, like I said, the city plans for this each and every year, and we also plan for it in future years, knowing that we'll need to make upgrades to certain types of snow plows or different equipment that is used to provide this service, where we may need to increase staffing. And so we are planning for those future years as we think about the cost to provide this service, because if we aren't doing that, then we could possibly be leaving future residents behind in the process. So budgeting isn't just about the here and now, it's about planning for the future as well.
Thì bây giờ bắt đầu nó sẽ bây giờ bắt đầu để xong thế nhà mình xong thế cái gì cái gì thì mình xong nó bị cười dầm này cái gì một cái gì nào đó thì lúc cho nó kỳ nó nè.
And so when we think about the budget as a collection of our priorities, we have services and goods within each of the city's policy priority areas that we go through a similar exercise of costing out the cost of a service. For each and every service within that policy priority area to inform how much revenue that the city needs to raise through property taxes in order to fulfill its priorities. Most of the city's revenue and most of its flexible revenue comes from property taxes. Taxes are paid to cover the current cost of services, but also those future costs that I talked about, to ensure that residents all have access to services within the city. So next we'll kind of discuss how the mayor and the city council decide which services and goods to fund within the budget. So they use the policy priorities, which we will ask all of you to rank momentarily, to inform their trade-off decisions about the budget. We can really think of trade-off decision making as a framework to allocate a finite amount of resources to a lot of really important goods and services within a city. So for example, we might have multiple goods and services that we want to fund, but we with that finite amount of resources that we have to fund those goods and services, we might have to pick one thing while letting other options go, or we can increase funding in one area and then decrease funding in another area. So those are kind of some ways that we can think of making trade-offs.
you know, we have COVID at the biggest that you come. We don't catch and talk about it, Jana. They just, you know, people, you know, you pay the way to your joy, yeah, fine. And they just get check, they will come down, because you're getting a bit more lose on them.
So the city faces trade-off decisions about the level of taxes that it wants to raise, or property taxes it wants to raise, and the services and goods that it wants to spend that money on.
Are we allowed to ask a question while you're talking?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just curious about it. So yeah, I'm not asking right now, but I'm just curious about it.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
Does anyone have a question with that?
I got a couple of questions here too. So yeah, so let's say the property taxes here in Minneapolis, the city wants to increase property taxes. How do you distribute the property tax among like the city and the county? How many percent goes to the county, how much goes to the city?
So the city levies its own property tax separately from the county. So we take in our own taxes separately. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So and just to add on that, with the amount of taxes that the city does levy, that funds core city services as well as the park board and the municipal building commission, which maintains city hall. So it is kind of spread throughout the city.
My other question is there any other option that not to raise the property taxes to the resident here who live in Minneapolis? And does the city receive funding from like the state, from federal to federal? How would that?
That's a very good question. We are almost to talking about like other revenue sources that the city takes in, as well as property taxes.
My other question is, if we compare the property tax here in the city of Minneapolis to other surrounding cities here, is the city of Minneapolis, the property tax is more than other city, or other cities more than?
I actually don't know that question. I'd have to follow up with you on that.
We can get that information. It varies a lot. As Lindsay kind of mentioned, and I'll go into, the property tax is one of those levers that the mayor, as well as policymakers, as well as the council, can make that decision whether to raise it or lower it. And every other city has that ability as well. So it kind of depends on what year we're looking at. We can definitely get that comparison.
Yeah, so I was thinking that, to raise property taxes for the resident, I think that's probably not, I don't think everybody who lives in the city of Minneapolis want that to happen, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's, so that was actually kind of like my example based off of like the trade-off discussion or conversation. Is just if the city wants to start like new programs or services, like that is often the trade-off, is that we have to increase property taxes because that is the most like leverage that the city has to bring in like new revenue. So I appreciate you sharing that too, as kind of a juxtaposition to that. So from there, I'll let Justin kind of walk us through some of those other like revenue sources that the city brings in.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. So Lindsay talked quite a bit about the property tax. As I mentioned, that's one of the levers that we are able to kind of manipulate a bit and see increased or decreased revenues. So beyond that, I think the question was, what other sources of revenue does the city receive? And so kind of just wanted to go through some of those higher level buckets of revenues that we get. The first being charges for services, as well as licenses and permits. This is primarily a restricted revenue in that the revenue that's being generated is for a specific service or for a specific business or events throughout the city. And so we cannot get increased revenue from those sources to then pay for public safety or affordable housing or the like. And so those are really driven by the expense of the programs. So it is revenue that comes into the general fund that covers city services for all residents and people visiting the city, but it's not one that we can increase as an offset to property taxes.
Mike wants me to do some more change so we can speed up the time for the mayor gets here, so.
Okay, thank you. So then the next bucket would be local government aid. So that is something that comes from the state. It is a formula that gets calculated to all cities within the state of Minnesota. So part of it is cities distributing a variety of local taxes to the states, and it goes into a pool of revenue sharing that then gets distributed back to the cities. Being the largest city in the state, we do get the largest amount, and that runs around $80 million a year. Again, though, that's restricted in the sense that we don't have much control in that formula. So as population changes, we do get greater disbursements of that, but to change how that disbursement is calculated, we would have to go to the state. It's a process of legislature. So significant revenue source, but again, not one that we have direct control over changing.
What was the name of that again?
Local government aid.
Local government.
Yep.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So what about the sales tax? Is the sales tax in the city collect or the county collect or go to the state?
Great question. So the city levies the tax that gets distributed to the county, and there's a couple different ways where it goes. Most of that revenue does come back to the city. Some of it gets peeled off for that local government aid, and then there's some other tax relief programs that the county as well as the state does, and so some of that also does get peeled off, but we get a majority of that revenue back into the city. And that, so like the sales tax, the entertainment tax, primarily that goes to fund a variety of things, but obviously we have the convention center, Target Center, US Bank Stadium, downtown core, as well as the neighborhoods out. So, yeah. So that kind of feeds into, we just talked a little bit about local sales taxes, is another large bucket of revenue that we get. The rates are fixed, and that's mandated by the legislature, but those are obviously very much driven by demand. So last year when we had Taylor Swift, when we had other events in the city, that resulted in greater receipts than we had anticipated coming out of the pandemic. But again, that's really driven by demand, so it's hard as a city or as a policymaking body to move that lever much because it's really driven by the amount of people that are coming to the city. And so the last piece is property taxes. I won't go too much in depth because we already have quite a bit. But I think it's important to note that whether or not to increase or decrease the property tax levy is a decision point that happens after we've looked at all other revenue sources in the city. So we're in the midst of doing that right now and kind of seeing where our expenses are coming in, what revenues we are estimating for the next year as well as the next 5 years. And when we identify that gap, which we have not done yet, but we're working towards it, we would use property taxes as one of the main levers to close that gap, because we do have to have a balanced budget by August 15th. So that's kind of like the higher revenue stuff that we wanted to hit. Is there any questions about that?
Is there any other programs that in the city that I was thinking about to eliminate it, and so that I can have some money from that program to fund other programs?
There are definitely a lot of various revenue sources. A lot of the ones that are program-based need to be used for those specific programs. So it does vary from time to time. We do get some grant funding from federal government as well as state. But a lot of times, I can't speak for every single program, but programs that do generate revenue, it's primarily needed to fund those programs rather than public safety or some other program.
So in the city of Minneapolis, I think there was a program that like the bike, I don't know how to call it, the bike riding that, we see a lot of bikes on the street, that in the city program, right? Is that a program that, have you assessed to see if that program would benefit the residents or?
Like the bike lane?
Yeah, I don't know what.
Bike rentals?
Oh, bike rentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that program is that part of the city program or?
I think we'd have to follow up. I don't know the answer to that question.
I did talk just a little bit generally maybe to answer the question, and
Yeah,
the mayor will be happy to talk more about that when he gets here.
跟菲律宾的跑的跟蒙去学的来的，但是没得学的到叫老，
个都成路边，
叫老，叫老到来。
这个我还都，你谈的是谈到人好嘛？你谈别人的是谈到人好对吧？
谈到人好。
OK，你的某些的不过是那还是好多人，而且我们对什么，การงานเรื่องตัวเมียตรงนั้นมันรู้ชื่อมันรู้ตัวเมียมันได้เรื่องการรู้ตัวเมีย
So I can just say a little bit about that right now, the process we're in the budget is talking to the departments that run all those programs about what are the programs that are successful, what are the programs that they think are not as successful, and giving us recommendations about what we should keep doing and if there are things that we should stop doing. So that's part of the process that we're in right now that we go through every year. And we have a new department at the City of Minneapolis, Performance Management and Innovation, and they will be building in more formal programs for us to do more formal evaluation of some of the things and to make sure that we're spending our money wisely for what the services the residents need and that they're getting the services.
With that being said, what measures are in place, to ensure overspending you guys prevent there?
So yeah, great question. Within public finance, there's various levels of budgetary control that cities, counties, states, etc. Our level of control is at the department and the fund level. So the general fund is where basically 90% of core city services are funded out of the general fund. And so for those departments that have budget within the general fund, they're able to spend up to their department allotted amounts. So that's staffing, temp services, contracts, supplies, travel, etc. And so that level of control is at that department level. So we make sure that at that level, there's not overspending.
Gotcha.
What do you say about the decisions made by the mayor and the city council on allocation of funding budget? Is there a committee or oversight committee or like an advisory committee that sees that everybody get a fair share of funding or?
Yeah, excellent question. So obviously the mayor presents his recommended budget in August. That's mandated by August 15th. And then in the latter half of the year, the council will meet, and there is a subcommittee of the council called the budget committee that also meets. And so we're currently in the process where we're developing the mayor's recommended budget. So that starts with the budget office, starts with departments, putting forth proposals. Those all get reviewed and vetted against city priorities, and all of that is leading towards that recommended budget. So that gets presented, and then the council later in the year is able to look at that recommended budget and make their own kind of adjustments. And within that, I think this might be kind of where you're headed, but there are public sessions where we welcome residents to come and give comment. And so those are usually in September, October. And there may be a third one this year. I think the budget committee is still determining whether or not that is, but we do have 2 public sessions.
Yeah, I think some of us are interested about those committees where some of us can be, or the Hmong community can be a member of those committees and be part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have a handout for everyone to take with them that has links to like the budget committee page, so you can like watch live or recordings of the budget committee, like find out like when they're meeting, how you can also get connected to your council members or connect further like with the mayor and his team. So we have stuff for y'all to take home about how you can continue to be like a part of like the budgeting process and like come to public hearings and like other events throughout like the budget process.
Are those members have to be appointed by the mayors, or they apply online, or?
Can you repeat your question?
Like the members of the committee that makes the decision and those things, that they have to be appointed by the mayor or the council?
The budget committee is made up of council members.
Oh.
Well, we should transition to the party ranking survey at this point. So we have a couple different ways that folks can take it. We have computers. We also have a QR code if people want to take it on their smartphone, and then I also have a printed version in Hmong. So I'll just like need everyone to like let me know what version they would like.
bỏ computer kia nó cho nếu mà sao tốt anh ấy quan cái smartphone cái này scan QR code này tay hậu thì này sao ở sông tàu nó mong sao cái bây giờ thành nó mong này mà đi từ nó mà đi khi nó ok cái này thì ý là họ chỉ chẳng chấp lại gì chỉ họ chỉ chẳng này ok
You want a printed version?
Let me say you are
The QR code is only in English.
you should the okay yes you know I get it mo sa to one na siya QR code ma din do gira help
So we're asking preferential order for one is the most important to you. I have instructions translated into your PowerPoint.
我这个好跟好像就是我上这个。
Anyone else? Yeah, so the numbers can go here.
Because tôi put on cái đài cái này sao在打他们那些还保卫，这个你好不是都那个都是干部，后来给了很多题啊，这个几个不能够，我的同学是那个蒙的，
This is the English version as well.
讲的那一个那么一个 TV 好背包，一个是扣那个是不是这个嘛？对，也。
这个才重点，一样 most important.
Yeah, you're trying to young and okay.
It's the opposite.
Yes,
It was a big number only.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have to look at the English version.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. I forgot to have the instructions translated.
But you have to go to college, you know, how city Minneapolis, you have language access. You know, how to department, you don't say, really awesome Hmong leader. So, they probably have to talk.